Today we're going to be doing some landscape editing in Adobe Lightroom. I've done a few videos like this before, but nothing quite like today's. Today we're going to make our landscape a little more punchy, a little bit more colorful, and really just play around with those settings to draw in people's attention. What I want to do here is a little bit more of a subtle looks and keep the image looking a little bit more natural than some of the overly processed stuff, but at the same time really dial this stuff in to really tell a good story. If you're interested in learning about today's tutorial, stay tuned for today's episode. Let's have some fun today and edit a really cool waterfall image. So this was shot totally handheld. I used kind of like a little guardrail that was setting at like this overlook to kind of help me keep steady so I can get that slower shutter speed and get this really cool shot. Now straight out of the camera, the image actually looked like this. Now although there's nothing wrong with this image because it's really nice and natural, it's really just not that visually pleasing, and if you're really trying to get viewers to stop on your images, pay attention to your profile and the different things you can do, you really need to kind of spice them up a little bit, especially in this day and age with the way Instagram and a lot of these top photographers are working. This is how you really cater to a specific audience. So I'm going to show you exactly how I got this look from this image. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I did for this image was go ahead and do my basic adjustments here. I'm going to add in a little bit of contrast. I'm going to pull my highlights down so we get some more detail up here in these clouds, and that way we also get some more detail here in the water. So I want to add some blacks to make those a little bit darker. I might actually pull my shadows up a little bit so you can see some more detail in these ranges. And for this image, I did boost this clarity quite a bit because there's a lot of sharp detail in these rocks and around the tree lines that I think are absolutely gorgeous, and to have that boost in clarity I think really helps make the image pop. So now because this was a really pretty warm sunny day, I want to add a little bit more warmth to the images. If you follow along with a lot of my tutorials, you know I really love adding warmth. It's just something about that warmer tone. I think it feels more welcoming and inviting for people to look at than these kind of cooler tones you can get. You know, unless it's like the winter time, I'm not really all for that kind of cool tone. So we're going to go ahead and pull our vibrance up, kind of give a little bit more oomph into the colors and make this really pop and stand out. But what we need to do is kind of play around with these tones some. So what I'm going to do is hop down to the camera calibration settings, and I really want my blues to be a little bit more on that teal side. So I'm going to kind of play around with the hue and saturation on my blue primaries here. But I don't want the greens to kind of go to that orange, yellowish teal color, because you can see in this image it wasn't like that. So after we get our basic settings here, I'm going to pull my greens back up this way and kind of give them some more saturation as well to make them pop. Now that we have our basic calibration set up, we're going to jump into our HSL sliders and do the rest. So with the hue section here, I'm going to grab into my greens and play around with those until I get a setting I like. Again, I wanted these to be a little bit more on the green side, so we're going to pull those up, but we're going to pull our saturation down to kind of make them a little bit more on the neutral side. And you can see now that we're kind of getting that look that we had over here. So we're going to go back to this. And on the luminance, I want to pull that down and kind of darken those greens a little bit so they don't jump out at you so much, and that way it kind of draws your eyes in more to this area, the waterfall, the actual subject we want people paying attention to. Now with our hue slider, I'm going to go up into my blues and I'm going to make that kind of right where I want it. Not too of that teal color, but not too much of the standard blue. So kind of like a happy median. And then I'm going to take my luminance slider here, and I'm actually going to pull that down just a little bit and kind of darken it some. So overall, that looks pretty good. I like the way that the colors are bouncing and everything, but we need to go back in and work on the basic exposure settings now. So I'm going to add in some more contrast to this image, and I'm probably honestly going to go a little bit crazy with the clarity. And we got a nice look there, so let's go ahead and do a quick before and after. So it looks like the new image, I went a little bit more saturated on my greens than in the previous one. And then this area here is a little bit too magenta for me. So let's go ahead and work on that. Let's go back to our HSL sliders. We're going to grab our hues here, and we're just going to kind of pull the hue of these rocks around. We're going to pull that up a little bit more into that yellow range. And then our saturation, let's go ahead and pull that down just a little bit. Not too much that it's, you know, turning completely black and gray, kind of that monochrome look, but we don't want it to be too over exaggerating. And then I'm actually going to pull the saturation of the trees down a tiny bit more. Right about there looks good. So let's take our hues, and I'm going to pull those greens up just a little bit into a different direction. And overall, I'm pretty excited about this look. Now again, this one's a little bit more vibrant and punchy with the greens, but I feel like this has an overall better look that really sells this image and shows that natural environment. It's got a little bit more of that teal orange effect, but it's not so overdone that it's super noticeable. It's a little bit more subtle, and I think in that aspect makes the image look a lot more interesting. But that's just a simple, quick way that I edit some landscape photos to get that look and feel that I have that flows through my Instagram, and how you can do it too. So I really love these short and sweet tutorials because they can really get to the point and teach you some very valuable advice. It's what you do with that advice on your images that really matter and can change the course of a scene. Honestly, I could have sent this image out to each and every one of you, and you could edit it in your own way, and we would get so many different looks, which is what is so amazing about the artistry involved with photography, videography, and all those other mediums. I really love to look and see how other people edit and kind of put their own personality and style into an image, and that's exactly what I worked on here today. You can make this landscape look like virtually anything you want just with working with a few settings within Lightroom, and that in itself is true beauty. But if you like today's episode, be sure to leave a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and as always, be sure to create something new today.